We're coming on the air right now because ABC News has just learned that Special Counsel Robert Mueller has filed his first charges in the Russia investigation. That first dramatic move from Mueller Monday morning, targeting former campaign chair Paul Manafort and his deputy Rick Gates. Both men pled not guilty to the 12-count indictment, which includes charges of money laundering and tax fraud. Even more surprising, Mueller revealed his first secret witness, George Papadopoulos, a foreign policy advisor on the Trump campaign, who admitted lying to the FBI about his contacts with the Russians and others in the Trump campaign. Among the details, conversations about getting dirt on Hillary Clinton, thousands of emails months before the emails were released by WikiLeaks. Let's analyze all the fallout now with the independent counsel who investigated Bill Clinton, Ken Starr. He also served as Solicitor General of the U.S. Preet Bharara, former U.S. attorney here in New York, fired by President Trump, now with NYU Law School and a senior legal analyst for CNN. And our own chief legal analyst, Dan Abrams. And Preet, let me begin with you. You've been in the trenches. You've prosecuted a lot of big cases. What message did Robert Mueller send on Monday about where he's going, where he's heading, how the strength of his case?
So I say all along, I don't think he's in this business to send a message. I think he's doing the job that he was appointed to do, which is to follow the facts, find out the truth, and hold people accountable if they've crossed over the line into criminal conduct. But a byproduct of his action is something that other people are hearing as a message, and that is, among other things, that the charges against George Papadopoulos and the fact that almost certainly he has flipped and cooperating with the government to provide substantial assistance with respect to someone else higher up in the food chain means you're going to see more charges coming. And the second thing I would say is the fact that the Mueller team takes very seriously being lied to. The FBI agents don't like that, and it undermines their ability to get the truth out and to hold people accountable. Lying to the FBI is a form of obstruction. So to the extent people are wondering how they feel about obstruction, they clearly feel very seriously about it, and some people should be worried.
Professor Starr, do you agree that in some ways that Papadopoulos plea agreement is the most significant thing he saw on Monday?
In some ways. I think the Manafort indictment, though, tells us that there is a real power and force in what Bob Mueller is doing, and I have great respect for Bob Mueller, in terms of draining the swamp. That indictment, of course, does not speak to anything with respect to Russian collusion, but it does talk about essentially corruption, corruption on K Street. And so I think that's very significant. I've read the Papadopoulos indictment with some care, and it seems to me that a fair reading of that is, yes, some of the dirt was going to come to him. He was interested in that, but he was really seeking to be a policy maker guy who could arrange a meeting with Vladimir Putin, with the Russian ambassador to the UK and so forth. So he was a real wannabe, but the point that Preet just made is so powerful. Don't lie to the FBI. And I think that is the message that Bob Mueller chose to send on this particular day, that it's not just about Paul Manafort, it's about the integrity of the investigation.
And Dan,
just tell the truth.
George Papadopoulos may have been a wannabe, may have been tangential to the campaign, though he was a foreign policy advisor in meetings with President Trump. But you learn from his agreement that he had lots of conversations, email traffic inside the campaign about Russian contacts, which has been denied by the Trump and his White House all along.
Well, and that becomes the key now, is assessing who were the people he was talking to, why were they encouraging him to continue speaking with the Russians, and most importantly, in the context of this investigation, what happened between the time he was arrested in July and until October 5th. So you've got a period there where he likely was helping. He may have even been wearing a wire, for all we know, in terms of getting information which could lead to additional charges on other people with regard to some of the same things we're talking about, which is potentially lying. And the question remains, why did Papadopoulos lie, right? Why, in this context, was he covering it up? Now, the answer may be he didn't want to admit it. He didn't want to come clean. He didn't want to talk about what he was doing. But there's a bigger question that has to be answered.
I want to bring that question to Preet. What does all this tell you about a possible obstruction case against the president and his associates?
Well, I think the charges against George Papadopoulos don't tell us that much about a possible obstruction case. But as I said a couple of minutes ago, it means they take this stuff very seriously. Throwing sand in the eyes of the umpire is frowned upon. And not only is it frowned upon, it's chargeable.
But they've said specifically in court, in the Papadopoulos plea, that this is a small part of a larger investigation.
Just the beginning.
Yeah.
You've also seen, Professor Starr, something you're familiar with, people criticizing the actions of the special counsel already. You've got some members of Congress saying that Robert Mueller should step down because he was the head of the FBI when that Uranium One deal was approved by 9 agencies under the Obama administration. What do you make of those attempts to say he's compromised by this?
Oh, I think that's silly. He certainly needs to step aside in terms of any investigation, I think, with respect to that. But that can be handled. There's no reason for his investigation to include that. There are also inspectors general and the like, so there are other mechanisms to hold folks accountable for whatever may have been done in that sense. But criticism goes with the territory. And if you don't have the facts, then argue the law. If you don't have the facts in the law, then attack the prosecutor. Every defendant is likely to do that, but what I think is very significant is even though the president is obviously very frustrated and lashes out, he appears to be following the advice of his lawyers, and his lawyers are saying the right thing. As far as we know, they're doing the right thing. They're cooperating with the investigation instead of stonewalling.
And saying they're not talking about firing Robert Mueller right now. Meantime, the president, as you point out, is active on Twitter criticizing his own Justice Department. Well, let's show up the tweet right there. Everybody is asking why the Justice Department and the FBI isn't looking into all the dishonesty going on with Crooked Hillary and the Dems. And right after that, our John Carl asked the president about it.
Will you fire Jeff Sessions if the Justice Department doesn't take action against
I don't know.
Hillary
I'm
Clinton?
really not involved with the Justice Department. I'd like to let it run itself. But honestly, they should be looking at the Democrats. They should be looking at Podesta and all of that dishonesty. They should be looking at a lot of things. And a lot of people are disappointed in the Justice Department, including me.
Pretty extraordinary, the president taking on his own Justice Department like that, Preet. And is he crossing the line by getting involved?
He's crossed the line a number of times. It is a terrible thing for a president in this country to tell his Justice Department who to investigate, who to prosecute, and who to keep their hands off of. And we have evidence of that, too, on the flip side of the coin. We have evidence that he told Jim Comey to back off on Mike Flynn, and that he asked Jeff Sessions potentially to back off on Joe Arpaio. And both of those things, I think, are terrible for the rule of law in this country.
You mentioned Mike Flynn. General Flynn, you got to believe that he has similar kinds of issues as Paul Manafort. I'm not mentioning money laundering, but we know reporting of his foreign lobbying activities. Already been revealed that he didn't properly report that. Is he next?
Well, the question is, what is he doing right now? Is he cooperating? I mean, months ago, he seemed to be publicly offering up his cooperation in exchange for a deal. So I don't think we know exactly what's happening with Flynn. But I think with regard to the president's public comments, there's separate questions of crossing the line in terms of protocol, in terms of morality and ethics and law, right? I think that it doesn't cross the line yet. People are asking, isn't this obstruction, what the president is doing already? And isn't he improperly, speaking out? And the answer is that improper, I think that's pretty clear. But when it comes to the implications for the Justice Department, I think it would have to be an order or a directive for it to really become a real legal issue.
But Starr, you get the last word. Is the president getting close to the line?
No, he's just spouting off. But until he does exactly what Preet said, until he issues a directive, directly or indirectly, he's expressing this frustration, but it's not crossing the line into criminality.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.